Hello, everybody. Welcome into a Computer America show. Got a great program planned for you tonight. In the second hour, we've got the Giz Wiz, Mad Magazine's maddest writer. And in the first hour, we have Beltone Canada. Frank Skrupski is the general manager, and he's going to be joining us as well. So sit back, relax, enjoy 2 hours of Computer America.
Broadcasting live, it's America's longest-running national radio talk show on computers, Computer America. Hosted by national columnist Craig Crossman. Look for Craig's weekly column in your favorite newspaper. This show is being beamed nationwide at ComputerAmerica.com. Keep it here for technology news, computer products, guest interviews, and your phone calls. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello, and welcome into the Computer America show. It's the nation's longest-running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers. Computer America is heard around the world and coast to coast. And I'm your host, Craig Crossman.
And I'm your co-host, Ben.
So let's get started. Our first hour guest. And as I mentioned, he's with Beltone Canada. They recently introduced what they're calling a revolutionary hearing aid capable of streaming high-quality stereo sound from an iPhone, iPad, and iPod Touch without the need for an additional pendant-like dongle device, which is cool. Wearers can also customize their hearing experience through the Beltone Hear Plus app. Okay, see, there really is an app for everything. And we'll hear, no pun intended, how Beltone Canada advances a number of Beltone technologies which already lead the hearing care industry. Now, joining us tonight is Frank Skrupski. Frank is Beltone Canada's general manager. Frank, welcome into Computer America. How are you, sir?
I'm great, Craig. How are you?
And thanks for being here with us tonight. You know, we've had a number of Beltones on here. We've had Beltone South. We've had Beltone USA. I take it Beltone Canada is part of the Canadian network of Beltone. What is Beltone Canada? Why don't you tell us?
Well, I mean, Beltone basically is, well, number one, we've been around for about 75 years. We are a distribution network of hearing instrument clinics all across North America. We have probably about 1,700 clinics across North America. So when you're talking about Beltone, New England or Beltone, Florida, or people who've been on the show previously, we're all part of the same network.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And now, so basically, and you're basically a brick and mortar? Do you have stores that people walk into, or are you strictly online? What is Beltone?
Well, that's correct. I mean, when you want to get a hearing instrument or a hearing aid, basically, it's a real sort of touch process that you have to go through. You have to get a hearing test. You have to, basically work with the practitioner to select the right hearing instrument. So that actually requires a person to walk into a physical clinic and do that testing and get the right solution for them. Okay.
And now we're going to talk a little bit about hearing loss and how that affects everybody. I understand that, how prevalent is hearing loss?
Well, hearing loss basically impacts about 10% of the entire population. So, if you're looking at North America, and let's include Mexico there too as well, you're looking probably about 50 million people that have some sort of a hearing loss. And as we get older, that becomes a lot more prevalent. Once you hit age 65, about 35% of all people have a hearing loss.
Wow. Now, I remember, some literature and some studies that were doing saying that, if you were younger and you went to, really loud concerts and things like that, or the hearing loss wasn't manifested immediately, but as you get older, you sort of pay a price for it. It was sort of like a sun. When you get a suntan, you can only get so many of those, and then when you get older, you wind up with skin problems or skin cancer. Is that in fact what happens?
Well, exposure to loud sounds obviously can contribute to a hearing loss. It's what we call a noise-induced hearing loss. But the number one reason for hearing loss is age-induced. And it's just as you get older, just like, you hit a certain phase in your life where you really start to notice that, hey, I need some reading glasses. What happens is the same thing with hearing loss. As we get older, some of those, especially high-frequency sounds, don't come in quite as clearly. We have these little nerve cells within our inner ear. They're not working quite as well anymore. And that basically is what just starts happening through the aging process.
Okay. So just as you get older.
Real quick, how would someone? I don't want to say self-diagnose because I don't want people going in and just throwing this around willy-nilly. But what would you say are some of the most common early warning signs that you may they may have hearing loss?
Well, I think number one is people asking people to repeat themselves constantly, misinterpreting some words, for instance, like not understanding certain words. But really, it's just asking people to repeat themselves. And what tends to happen is that, as that starts to happen more and more, people just tend to kind of withdraw from conversations. They're not quite as active anymore. But that's basically what we see. And a lot of times people say, sounds like you're mumbling or things like that. So, those are the kind of the signs to look for.
Okay. What if the person really is mumbling?
Then he'll probably be known as the mumbler even before he comes to the party or something like that.
So let me. If people are losing their hearing like this, I mean, why don't people do something about this, or is there anything that they can do to prevent this from happening?
Well, I think age-induced hearing loss, there's nothing you can do about it unless you can get younger. It's just going to naturally happen. Mm-hmm. And I think that, when we start talking about noise-induced hearing loss, obviously there are some things that you can do about that. Make sure that you've got proper hearing protection on and whatnot. I see a lot of people, on, sit-down lawnmowers or operating, loud power tools and whatnot, wearing no hearing protection whatsoever. I mean, they are at risk eventually for a noise-induced hearing loss. But, in the hearing aid industry, like we see at Beltone, the majority of people, it's age-induced. When you hit a certain age, just like your reading glasses and whatnot, you're probably going to need some sort of hearing amplification, to help you understand speech. So
basically, the people are beginning to have hearing. Now, does everybody have it, or is it there's a certain percentage of people? I mean, some people get old and don't have hearing loss. I mean, what are the numbers?
Absolutely. I mean, roughly what we see is about 35% of all people who are 65, when they hit age 65, probably could benefit from wearing a hearing instrument. When they hit about 75 years old, that number jumps up to about 50%. And as they get older, I mean, that number goes up even higher and higher. So eventually, I would say that as we get older, the majority of seniors are going to require some sort of assistance with their hearing.
Hmm. Well, so there are many people then that go through life with no hearing problems whatsoever, right? For
the ones who do, though, luckily, I think we've advanced to the point, as I'm sure we're going to talk tonight, that you no longer have to walk around with a bugle in your ear. It's
right.
Yeah, it's come a long way since
pretty inconspicuous.
Well, and that goes to the question about hearing aids. I mean, how have hearing aids changed, Frank, over the last several years? There's been some enormous changes, haven't there?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think one of the problems that we have in the hearing industry in general is really the stigma associated with it. That when you get a hearing aid, people automatically look at you and think either you're disabled or you've got a problem or you're old. And I think that people don't want to get hearing instruments because they're kind of like throwing in the towel and saying, yeah, my hearing's not working anymore. But over the last 20 years especially, back in the early 90s, hearing instruments were all analog products. And, there was no digital sound processing or anything like that whatsoever. But about 20 years ago, digital hearing instruments came into the mainstream. And since that time, and along with digital programming, using some software and computers to be able to fine-tune hearing instruments, mm-hmm. we've been able to get, really be able to fit people with real precise fitting algorithms that, will do them very well. And now we've moved on to complete wireless technology and actually having technology that will interface with, your 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 personal telephone, telecommunications and whatnot. So that it is really discreet in the sense that people don't really know that you're having to adjust your hearing aid. You're all doing it through, for instance, your iPhone or your, Samsung, Galaxy S6 or something like that.
Hmm. Well, the thing is, I remember with hearing aids, it was like a little pack of cigarettes or something, and you put it in your shirt pocket, and they had the little earphone with the little twisty kind of wire, and that would go into your ear. And but those were in those days it was considered, oh, it's amazing, look at that, you can just carry it around with you in your shirt pocket. But that was pretty much analog. Today's hearing aids are very, very tiny. And some of them, I understand, will even fit inside your ear. I know some that go behind your ear, but they have some that actually go in your ear as well. Can you tell us a little bit about this?
Yeah, I mean, we have two types of hearing instruments in general. What we have is we have products that we call behind-the-ear hearing instruments that they do fit behind, the outer ear or your ear, and usually have either a little tube or wire that goes into the ear so that we can put the speaker in there. On the other side, this has been back in the 70s, we've had custom hearing instruments too as well, where we'll actually take a mold of the person's ear and make a product that is completely custom made for them. We'll actually use that mold to put all the components and whatnot, the hearing instruments, inside that mold, right. And then it'll just fit directly in the ear, and it's a custom fit.
But those were still pretty much analog, were they not? I mean, we're getting into digital. I mean, what are the advantages of going digital as opposed to the analog technology with hearing aids?
Well, I think digital, number one. I mean, just the sound processing and the digital signal processing that's capable with digital products. It's just never ending. And even with the custom products now, we are still able to custom program them. They are also have wireless capability too as well. So, I mean, in terms of sound processing in general, the digital products, including custom, has taken over analog completely.
Whenever someone mentions digital and especially speakers inside the ear, I always get the feeling that someone out there has had the unpleasant experience of, maybe a car crash behind them or someone claps right next to their ear or whatever, and it just spikes the digital speaker, and it just blows out their eardrum even worse. Does the digital hearing aid actually, I don't want to say normalize, I guess, the sound?
Well, I mean, the way you have to, I guess it's an understanding of hearing loss in general. I mean, the average person who has a hearing loss, number one, where they have difficulty is hearing soft sounds. And when it comes to very loud sounds, for instance, a person with hearing loss usually will hear those loud sounds just like a normal hearing person because they can hear those loud sounds. But hearing instruments in general, we have something that we call like sort of an output limiter, so that if there's a very loud sound that comes in, it's not going to be amplified. I mean, that will be limited, and so there's no risk to the person having, for instance, a very loud sound, and it's going to suddenly spike and maybe injure their ear.
Yeah.
And hearing instruments are very good, and especially the digital technology, that they have what we call a very quick attack time. They can really recognize the intensity of the sound and apply the proper compression that's required to make sure that the person has comfort and also clarity in the signal that's being produced.
Makes sense.
All right. So what are the biggest benefits you think people realize when they get hearing instruments like this?
Well, you know what? I've been in hearing clinics before, and I've been around people that have been fit with a hearing instrument for the very first time, and they've been living for a very, very long time with, just kind of like bargaining their days through and not being able to get the proper amplification and whatnot. And I think a lot of times, I've seen people, being fit with hearing instruments for the first time, and suddenly their eyes just light up, and suddenly they kind of realize, I'm hearing all this sound around me, and I didn't know it was there. And their ability to discern speech, for instance, and hear people and what they're saying, I mean, the number one thing about a hearing aid is really, it's not just about amplifying sound. It's about allowing them to understand speech, and especially speech and noise. But you know what? I mean, that's the number one thing that we do in the hearing industry. It's just allowing people to be able to understand speech and connect with other people.
Well, the technology has come so far along because it's not simply, oh, let's amplify everything and so the person can hear it, because then you'll amplify background noise. And so
Yep.
if you're in a restaurant and a crowded restaurant that's fairly noisy and someone's sitting across the table from you, you're going to hear everything around, and that's not what you want to do. And with digital, I understand you can literally, there are techniques that you can use so you don't hear the background noise, but you hear the person, let's say, that's closest to you or nearby you. How do they do that?
Well, basically, sound has a sound spectrum. It has a frequency response that starts at 0 hertz and go up to about 10,000 hertz. And really, all the keys of speech happen in that range between 1,500 hertz to about 4,000 hertz. But really, ambient background noise happens in the low frequencies. So what hearing instruments can do is they break up that frequency response into a number of different channels. And in the low frequencies is really where we hear all that ambient background noise. That's where you hear that low frequency hum in the background. Like when you're in a restaurant, you hear people babbling in the back and you hear speech babble and whatnot. That's that low frequency sound. But the speech that you really want to concentrate on happens at a higher frequency. So the hearing instruments actually divide that frequency response, determine where the noise is, okay, and there's no speech present there, and they will actually attenuate the sound in that frequency so that that kind of background noise doesn't mask out the speech, so that you're getting attenuation in those speech frequencies.
All right. So now, the different technologies that you're using today, we would consider this to be pretty much wireless, wireless technology. Yet you're expanding it to work with items that we carry around, like our smartphones today.
Right.
And you have come up with a way to use a smartphone to control and monitor and adjust the hearing aid itself. And could you give us a little bit of an overview of what it is that you have to offer today?
Yeah. On Beltone hearing instruments, for instance, like our new hearing aid that we just recently launched, the Beltone Legend product, for instance, these are all what we call wireless products. And inside every single hearing aid, there is actually a little small FM antenna that we put into them. And I guess, if you've seen a hearing aid, see how small they are. I mean, that's got to be a pretty small antenna. And it operates on a 2.4 gigahertz FM frequency. And just like pairing, for instance, your Bluetooth headset or any other device to your iPhone or your Android enabled phone, we're able to pair the hearing instrument directly to your telephone, and through the app, or for instance, we have the Beltone Hear Plus app, which you can download for free. You download this item or download the app, you pair your hearing instruments to your telephone, and you're able to completely control your hearing aids directly, either through your iPhone or through your Android-enabled phone.
And when you say control now, you're not talking about having the hearing aid act as a Bluetooth earphone and you're hearing the telephone conversation. You're controlling other parameters of the hearing aid itself. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, you can adjust the volume on the hearing instrument. You can actually do some things that you could never do with conventional hearing aids back in the past. You can adjust the treble. You can adjust the bass. You can select different program settings that you've had ahead of time. Whether or not you're just normal one-on-one conversation, whether or not you're in a restaurant. You could have special programs built in, basically this geotagging function within the hearing instrument. So it actually knows when you go to a certain location, and if you've adjusted the hearing instrument via your telephone to a certain setting, when you go back to that same environment again through the geotagging function on the phone, it'll ask you, "Hey, you're back. You're at the golf club or wherever you are. Would you like to set your hearing instrument back to that same setting?" And you can say yes. So yeah, I mean, you're able to do a lot of things through the telephone, and you can also do it very discreetly, right? I mean, that's one of the things about hearing aids. Back in the past, you always have to put your finger to your ear and make adjustments. Now you can just do it through your phone, so maybe somebody just thinks you're texting.
Yeah, exactly. Now, can you set it so it just does that automatically, or does it come up and send you a notification? You have to answer the notification, or can you do it either way?
Well, basically, it'll usually come up and ask you to, like, for the notification, if you want to do it. But you can set it to set it automatically as well.
Okay, so then it's just no hands completely.
Yeah.
Now, and I was kind of kidding around when I said it, but is there, in other words, when I'm actually using the smartphone and I'm holding it up to my ear, does the hearing aid then act as a hearing aid, or can it actually take the phone conversation and bring that into my ear and act as a headset?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when a telephone call comes in, I mean, you can set it so basically the telephone call, the conversation that you're hearing through your phone can stream directly to the hearing instruments. And in fact, it goes even further than that. I mean, you could stream music to it directly if you like. You could, if you're FaceTiming with somebody, it can stream directly to your hearing aids. You can even get GPS prompts right to your hearing instruments too.
So it really is kind of complete.
Yeah, that acts just like a speaker. That's very. I would just know it's very handy, but I'm assuming it knows natively to let outside noises kind of trump whatever messages maybe coming through your ear.
Yeah, I mean, what happens is, if there's an input that's coming or some other signal is coming out of the telephone, like a GPS prompt, or maybe you're talking on the phone. As soon as that finishes, as soon as that terminates, the hearing aid will turn back on again, and we'll go back to the way it's working before for you. But yeah, it will trump, how the hearing aid's working, because we're assuming that this is the signal the person wants to hear.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Frank, I assume your microphone is on a cord or something, because it keeps shifting around and keeps making clicking noises. If you could stop it from doing that, I would appreciate it.
All right.
So basically, it acts as a Bluetooth headset if you want, with a Bluetooth headset. So the phone rings, you can answer the phone, and you don't have to hold the phone up to your ear. You can actually hear the phone conversation, or you can play music on your smartphone and stream the music directly to the hearing aid as well. And this is all part of the Beltone Hear Plus app. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, it's all part of the either the Beltone Legend line or the Beltone First line. And yeah, the app and the wireless technology works, directly with those products.
Now, what about the Apple Watch? That's kind of can you use this with the app with the Apple Watch as well?
Absolutely, you can. If you have obviously if you have the app downloaded on your telephone, and have an Apple Watch, you can still hear my clicking here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Hold on, let me see if I can move this around here. Maybe this might be better.
Something's hitting.
Yeah. Maybe that's better now.
No, it's going.
Yeah.
Some sort of vibration there, isn't it?
Yeah, something's hitting the mic. But
That's okay.
Yeah, don't worry about it. So you can use it with the Apple Watch. How does that work?
Well, basically, the Apple Watch, what you're able to do basically is, with the Hear Plus app, when you download it onto your iPhone, obviously it will also download to your Apple Watch at the same time. So you have the ability to do some of the basic adjustments to your hearing aid directly through the Apple Watch. So you can adjust the volume, you can adjust programs, you can actually even adjust things like noise reduction. If you're in a restaurant or whatnot, and you feel like there's a little bit too much noise around you, you actually have the ability through the Apple Watch to reduce or to increase the amount of noise reduction that you have. So it has a lot of the same features that you have through the iPhone or the app in general. Yeah.
Okay. I want to ask about some of the other features available with the Apple Watch, but we're coming up to the break, and also, are there other apps available for you? So we've got some other questions that I'd like to ask you, but we're gonna take a little break, Frank, and then we'll continue on. You're listening to the Computer America Show. Our guest tonight is with Beltone Canada. Frank Skupski is Beltone Canada's general manager, and we're speaking to him about some of these really very cool technologies for people who are hearing impaired. And we'll continue on with him when we come back. We also have another News Tips Bulletin review from Marty Winston. So we will be right back. You're listening to the Computer America Show. Please stay with us.
Welcome back to the Computer America Show. 33 minutes past the hour in the first hour, and we're talking to Beltone Canada, and just talking about all of their different hearing aids. And you should definitely go check out their website and see what it's one thing to hear it described to you, or slightly hear it described to you, and it's another thing to actually see these products, because they're actually very well designed, and they look very nice. So it's nice to hear that stigma that we were talking about towards the beginning of the show is wearing off, because these things they don't look too different than a normal Bluetooth device. They're very stylish on their own, and hearing loss is nothing to, I feel like no one should be afraid of fixing a medical issue. So your products look very good, and I don't think anyone would be self-conscious sporting one of these. But we were talking about right before the break the app and how it works with iOS, and also works with Android, and it even works with the Apple Watch, because hey, it's new, it's fancy, why not? Yep. And I guess our next question was what are some of the other apps that you can use with this thing?
Well, one of the other apps that we have is we have a feature or an app. It's called the Tinnitus Calmer, and basically, I don't know if you know what tinnitus is, but tinnitus is a
tinnitus. I guess it's a pronunciation. I say, I guess maybe it's a Canadian thing. I don't know, but it's we had the president CEO of dictionary.com last night. We were talking. Some people say aluminum, so some say aluminium. So I guess
yes.
But tinnitus is that ringing in the ear, correct? That people experience.
That's correct. Yeah, and about 10 to 15% of all people have experienced or some sort of ringing in their ear. Actually, probably more than that have experienced ringing in the ear, especially if you've been at a loud rock concert or something like that. Yeah. You're walking out and your ears are ringing after the show, right? And that's really from all that loud sound that's you've been subjected to. It's kind of a reaction, basically, that the inner ear has.
Didn't I think William Shatner has tinnitus and has had it for years.
And he's Canadian too, so yeah.
So you say, but yeah, no, tinnitus is very, very common. Even I've had it when I was 21, 22 years old, after working around heavy machinery just for like a year. It's pretty. It's very subtle, but when you get in a really quiet room, that's when you notice it.
Oh, you hear it. Yeah, exactly. And you have something that can help people with tinnitus, Frank?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and the number one thing about ringing in the ears, for instance, or what some people refer to is ringing of the brain, more or less than calling it ringing of the ears, because they really feel it's more of a neurological issue. It's maybe not directly associated to the inner ear and whatnot, but the way that we handle that, basically, and it's interesting, the comment before that you kind of focus in on it. The way that we view tinnitus, basically, and the way that we handle it, and with tinnitus retraining therapy and whatnot, because there's really no cure for it. I mean, once you've had it and it's chronic, and you have it all the time, you're pretty much, you're going to have it all the time. It's a lot like walking into a room, a very dark room, and you have a candle burning in the corner. And of course, you're focusing, as soon as you walk into that room, you will focus in on that candle. So what we do with tinnitus retraining therapy is that we present tones via the hearing instruments, and also via the Tinnitus Calmer app, where you can select your different sounds that you want to listen to. It really is a sound that we generate so that it gets your mind off of the ringing in your ears. So it's a competing sound to basically alleviate the constant ringing in your ear.
So in other words, it's a distraction. It's to distract the distraction, or to away from the tone. Is what you're
That's
doing.
right. Yeah, that's exactly how it works. So with the Tinnitus Calmer app, basically you can go in there and you can select through a large library of different sounds to basically present to yourself, basically, or when you're in quiet times, especially, so that you're not focusing in on that ringing in your ears.
So do they actually know what it is? I mean, is there any physical evidence? I mean, I realize there's no cure, but they at least know what's causing it, or they don't even know what's causing it at this point.
Well, I think for a lot of people, it's different things, right? I mean, for some people, for instance, it could be because they do have some sort of a hearing loss in the inner ear, and maybe it's those nerves in the inner ear that are causing the ringing in their ear. But for the most part, there really is there's no real I guess the word I'm looking for is there's really no real diagnosis as to why it's happening.
Okay. And tinnitus, now is this a sign of our times, or has tinnitus been around since people have been hearing? I mean, is it something?
Well, I mean, back in caveman days, I'm sure cavemen died at the ripe old age of like 28, and it really wasn't a problem.
Well, I mean, or is it something a sign of our times where we have amplified sounds, and we live in cities with all kinds of sounds as opposed to rural living? I mean, have there any studies been done on that, Frank?
Well, I think I think it's probably been around for a very long time, and I think that it's it's been an issue for probably thousands of years. I mean, especially as we get older and whatnot. It can also be associated to other things, in life. I mean, even things like, high blood pressure, too much sodium in your diet and whatnot. I mean, sometimes there are things that will be recommended to you immediately about, trying to control that. That might help with, with the ringing in your ears. But, yeah. And the one thing that we see, especially with people who suffer with ringing in the ears, roughly about, even though we say it's about 10 to 15% of the population have ringing in their ears, usually about of all those people who suffer from ringing in the ears, about 60% of them probably have some sort of a hearing loss.
Mm-hmm. Well, all right. So what do you think the next big innovation in hearing instruments is going to be?
Well, I think we're going to continue. I mean, I think the big innovation that we've already had really is the kind of the coming together of personal communications with hearing amplification, because it kind of all goes together. I mean, in hearing aids right now, I mean, our main goal is about communication, improving communication for people. So I think that you will continue to see hearing instruments interfacing with your personal communications even on a higher level. Whether or not that's you're wearing hearing aids and you're going to use it for everything. Listening to your music for and the fidelity will even get better and better and better. So I think that you'll see that full integration with your personal communication devices, audio devices. Mm-hmm. It'll just become part of, people's lives. And I think eventually what's going to happen is that, we're going to probably have these Bluetooth devices, wireless devices in our ears all the time to talk on the phone, listen to music, get on a plane, just connect in. And guess what? It's also a hearing aid. So it probably will hopefully one day completely get rid of the stigma of wearing a hearing aid, because everyone's going to wear it.
Whether they realize it or not. What about battery life? That's something I meant to ask you, especially with these small ones that go they're actually inserted into the ear canal. How long? What kind of battery life do you get with these things? What kind of batteries are you even using? I guess it must be really tiny batteries.
Yeah, we use very small sort of button cell batteries. They're zinc air batteries. They, number one, they don't have any mercury in them. They used to be mercury batteries, or even before that, silver batteries. But in general, I mean, it really depends on, number one, how small the battery is and the kind of power that you need out of the hearing instrument. Obviously, the bigger the engine, the more power. I mean, we see with the very, very small products, the completely in-canal products that are completely invisible, they use what we call a 10A battery. You're probably looking at anywhere from 3 to 5 days of battery life. And then with some of the larger products, I mean, you can get 2 to 3 weeks out of them. I think the one thing about hearing aid batteries is that it's probably not the the top product for a lot of the battery manufacturers that are out there. Seeming it's a very small market. I think their focus really is on more, telephones and computers and whatnot. But we're hoping that in the future we start seeing some better battery technology coming out to enhance the life on these batteries.
Oh, battery technology is so archaic. I lament about that constantly on the show.
What are you talking about, Craig? We just had an advancement like 23 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. And some of the technologies are still from the 1800s. I mean, it's amazing because we can do so much with technology, but the one limitation is in mobile devices is the battery, and we've seen there have been no giant leaps. All the batteries I take it in these hearing aids are not rechargeable, right? You take it, use it, and put a new one in.
Well, actually, we do have some rechargeable batteries out there, but I mean the performance of these rechargeable batteries has been, I guess, sketchy at best. And I think based on the population that we're dealing with, being seniors in general, and I can say it personally myself, to me it's just another thing I've got to charge, and I've got enough things I have to charge. So I think when it comes to batteries, I find that the throwaway batteries are probably the best option out there.
Are there any induction technologies on the horizon? I know for phones now they're getting induction, technologies where you don't have to, the battery will charge wirelessly. Anything that they're doing that for hearing?
And then you put it into a pillow, and then you charge it through your pillow. I like that. Never take it out again. I like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's actually induction charging has been discussed in our industry, I think, for at least 10 years now. Utilizing some sort of rechargeable battery that we can just put on a pad, put the hearing aid on a pad, and it will, charge the hearing aid wirelessly. But I don't see that on the horizon probably for the next couple of years.
You mean no one's listening?
Yeah, they're listening. I think they're trying to do it, but it's not happening as quickly as we'd like to see it.
I can think of all the puns that you could use. It's falling on deaf ears. It's just none of it's either. I'm sorry, but.
Interesting too, though. I mean, because I think one of the number one complaints that we get out of hearing aid wearers is battery life.
Yeah,
they would like better battery life. They like to see the batteries last longer, or at least have better battery charging solutions. So, certainly, we'd like to move in that direction, but I think it takes some collaboration with the battery manufacturers. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, like I said, the hearing instrument industry is. When you compare it to cell phone batteries or the batteries for an iPad or a laptop computer, it's pretty small in comparison.
Well, Frank, I want to thank you for being here with us on the show. Again, the website is www.beltone, beltone.ca, or you can go to our website at computeramerica.com and check them out for yourself. I assume price ranges are kind of all over the map. Typically, what can one spend for one of these hearing aids?
Well, like you say, I think you're quite right. It's all over the map. I mean, you can, hearing aids can start from very affordable prices, below $1,000, and they can go up to, over $3,000 for one, depending on what you really need. In Canada, though, I mean, the land of socialized medicine, we do have assistance from the government to help people towards the purchase of hearing instruments. So you really got to check where you live, check your own insurance policies, and see what you can get. But really, the best thing to do for you, especially at the age of the average hearing aid wearer, and I think these people are worth it. They should get the best one they can afford.
Sure, absolutely. Frank, again, thank you so much for being with us here tonight on Computer America, and
nice to hear from you.
Nice to hear from you. Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right.
Good night.
You take care. Good night. Bye-bye.
Okay. Good night. Thank you.